YouTubers! Greetings and salutations, this is Atari Leaf with a video response to Dr. Retro's top 5 video games that defined your childhood. Okay? So the top 5 video games that defined your childhood. So this for me is going to span from my early days with the Atari 2600 up into my teens and early adulthood with the Sega Genesis. Okay, so first game on the list. This was a very easy choice. Of all the choices when I started thinking about this video, this one was definitely the easiest one to come up with an answer for. And that is Space Invaders for the Atari 2600. Now the ironic thing is, back when I first owned an Atari as a child, I never owned Space Invaders. But friends of mine had it, my cousins had it. I was always over at their place playing Space Invaders because I loved that game. That was the first arcade video game I ever played, that and Seawolf. So when I did eventually get an Atari though, the ironic thing is I never bought my own copy of Space Invaders. And that's because my friends and cousins had it, and we would always trade, right? I bought Asteroids, I bought Berserk, Defender, so I would trade for a week, say, here, take my Asteroids, I'll take Space Invaders, or Adventure, or Missile Command. But Space Invaders was bar none my favorite game back in the day that defined my childhood. It made me want to get an Atari 2600, and I think that was the same for a lot of people back then, because Space Invaders was Atari's killer app at the time. It was the reason that people started to really want an Atari 2600. Okay, number 2 that defined my childhood. I mentioned before that I was never able to get a ColecoVision as a kid, but my first experience with it was when we were on vacation, and we were at this lodge up in Northern Ontario, and the lobby of the place had a ColecoVision set up. So I would go in there and they had 4 games. They had Donkey Kong, of course, Ladybug, Mr. Do, and at the time, this was my favorite of the 4, Cosmic Avenger. At the time, I played this one the most, even though now this is probably my least favorite of the 4. But, you know, I was a kid, I liked Star Wars and Star Trek and space games. I love space games, so Cosmic Avenger, which is a lot like Scramble, which I also liked in the arcade. This was a lot like that. Great game. I love that game. It made me want to get a ColecoVision. Unfortunately, I never did get that ColecoVision at the time, although finally did get one now. Okay, moving on to answer number 3. In the 80s, we had the Tandy Color computer, right? I talk about that system a lot. Great system. Love that thing growing up. Now, the answer for number 3 here is not one specific game, but a group of games in a particular genre. So I'll spin the camera around just to show you here. The screen, because I don't have physical copies of these games, because they came out on either cassette or disc at the time. But what you're looking at is Sands of Egypt, for example, here. And this is a graphical adventure game, the kind where you go like this, you're lost in the desert, you see a snake and sand, you are thirsty. Well, so you go type walk north, walk south, pick up shovel, beat snake to death, that kind of thing, right? So there were all kinds of these games for the Tandy Color computer. Of course, I'd heard of Zork at the time, but Ned never played it. But these graphical ones, here's another one, Sea Search or Sea Quest, same type of thing. We've got one called Calixto Island. I like that one a lot. And then my favorite one, again, space game, Trek Bore. A lot of fun. So yeah, I was really addicted to all those graphical adventure games on the Coco. So I had to play them all. Loved them all, every single one of them. There was one called Dallas Quest, based on the Dallas TV show too, that I really liked. I think Trek Bore was one of the first ones I beat too, when I was playing it. A lot of fun, really liked that game, space theme. So yeah, the answer to number 3 of games that defined my childhood are graphical adventure games on the Tandy Color computer. Now we're going to jump ahead to my teen years and the NES. Now with the NES was a system that I bought very late in the system's existence. I believe it was '88. And I bought Super Mario and Duck Hunt, and I'll be truthful, didn't like Super Mario Brothers. I still don't. I don't like platformers. I play Duck Hunt all the time. And I bought a few other games like Breakthrough and A couple others I can't even remember. Didn't really care for the system. But when this came out, because I was thinking about getting rid of the NES, but when I found out this was coming out, I decided, you know what, I'm going to keep it. Because I played this in the arcade and I loved it. And being a Canadian and a hockey fan, Blades of Steel was a killer app for me. Why is this upside down? There we go. Yeah, Blades of Steel. Great game. Again, my friends would come over, my cousins would come over, we'd have these little tournaments and we'd play this game. We played the heck out of this thing. Absolute love this game for the NES. That and the other ice hockey, which I did eventually get down the road too. But Blades of Steel was the one I really, really enjoyed, and it made me want to keep my NES. So if it wasn't for this, I probably never would have even... My NES days would have been very, very short. Okay, love that. Similar theme with game number 5, or answer number 5. We're going to skip ahead to the 16-bit era. Now, I had a TurboGrafx 16, and I loved it. Had a lot of games for it, played it a lot, and as time went on, I started playing it a little bit less, and I started looking at the Sega Genesis. So I went to the mall, and I was playing it on the kiosk, and there was Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh, another platformer. No thanks. Pass. And then a friend of mine told me, you know what, there's this certain game that's going to be coming out, a certain series, from the same people that made Madden Football. So you may want to take a look at that. And of course, I did. So like Blades of Steel, I found out this was coming out. I took the TurboGrafx down to a local game store. The games, traded everything in, got a Sega Genesis, and this game, well, not this game, the first NHL game, which I believe is 91 or 92. I don't have it, so I'm using this as a physical representation. But the NHL series on the Genesis made me want to get that system, and it was my favorite game for that system at the time, and I played the heck out of it. But every year, pretty much every year that came out, I don't know whether I got 98, but I got everything from the beginning to 97, I'm pretty sure. And I loved them all. But 95 is my favorite. That's why I'm showing you this one. So yeah, that was definitely a game that defined my early adulthood, not my childhood so much, but my early adulthood was this. Still love this. Still love the sports games. That's right, I love sports games, particularly hockey games. Still do. So stop with the hate for the sports games. There are people that still like these things. So there you go. Games that defined my childhood. Space Invaders for the 2600, Cosmic Avenger for the ColecoVision, graphical adventure games for the Coco, Blades of Steel on the NES, and NHL series on the Genesis. This is my response to Dr. Retro's video. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great day.